Hello Fearless Gamers, Matt here for Fearless Games, and today I'd like to introduce a new segment to the channel called The Book Corner. This is where members of the Fearless will talk about novels that are set in our favorite gaming settings. And today I'm going to start this whole segment off doing a review of the very first book I've ever read in the Warhammer 40,000 universe, called The Path of the Warrior, Book 1 in the Path of the Eldar series. This book was written by Gav Thorpe, or however you pronounce that, I'm not really sure. He's mostly well known for his novel The Angels of Darkness, which is a Dark Angels novel. And this is a series that is a three-parter, Path of the Warrior, Path of the Seer, and Path of the Outcast. And it's based around three Eldar of the craft world Altalic, or Altiak, how I'm going to say Altiak because it sounds right to me, but it's probably not correct at all, so forgive me if I'm saying it wrong. And, it's them, deciding to go down different paths of the, different Eldar paths, and how their involvement and how their travels down their path lead to this grand event which has the fate of Altiak hanging in the balance. Overall, most people considered this the first Eldar novel to not be terrible. And I've never read an Eldar novel before, so I'm going off of this as a clean slate, and I actually really enjoyed it. Before I get too into it, I am going to talk about two tiny nitpicks that I had. Just very tiny ones that didn't really affect the book at all, but I sat there going, you know what? Yeah, this. Two things. You really had to really try to come up with this stuff to really think of something negative to say about the book to go to this far level. The first one is the fact that it's on the craft world Altiak, which is big, which has a lot of Eldar Rangers. A lot of the Eldar become outcasts or go down the path of the Ranger. And as one of the book titles titled Path of the Outcast, one of them decides to become a ranger of the three friends. It's based around three friends, Calandril, Thathena or something like that. I can't really pronounce the Eldar names except for Calandril that well, and Ariath or something. But one of them decides they're going to take on the path of the ranger. And the other two are like, they're disgusted by this. And you're sitting there going, well, they're kind of treating it as most Eldar treat the ranger path. But I felt like this was not a proper reaction to this, since they have tons of Eldar go down the path of the ranger. So I would figure that this would be a more common path to take over, like, say, the Aspect Warriors or the Seer paths. I figured they'd be a little bit less shocked by the fact that this one character took the path of the warrior, path of the ranger, but neither here nor there. The other thing is that Altiak, especially the Rangers, tend to have a close tie to the Harlequins, and I did not see one single Harlequin at all in this book, and that was like, oh, I really wanted to see a Harlequin or something. But those are minor tidbits that don't ruin the story at all throughout this whole book. One thing also to note, if you don't know anything about the Eldar, then you shouldn't read this book. You should read the wiki or read the codex first, because the author does not go into this book assuming you don't know anything about the Eldar. He assumes you know the general information about the Eldar on this one, so he doesn't hold your hand through that, and he just goes off of it and assumes you know what he's talking about. So if you don't know what the Infinity Circuit is, you might want to do some research on the Eldar before reading this book. As you can see, this one, The Path of the Warrior, is about one of them. I believe it says Calandril takes on the Path of the Warrior and becomes a striking scorpion. And it's his, life going up to this major event that happens that can affect the fate of Altiak. So it's a really nice story. It gives you a great insight to the psyche of the Eldar, how they live their lives, what a day-to-day life is, how the life on a craft world functions, just what a craft world is capable of doing. They also talks about, when it comes to choosing the path of the warrior, how they determine if you're ready to become the path of the warrior, like how one decides to follow an aspect warrior, and when they decide this, which aspect they're going to take, which is a really neat idea. I always wondered how they decide which aspect to take on and such. It's a really neat idea. They also talk about, how, different shrines of aspect warriors to explain, how, you can have more than just one squad of striking scorpions in an army. And it came up with this really interesting idea about distinctions between these shrines and everything. So it gave me this great idea for when I paint my second squad of Shadow Specters, and if I ever do, like, say, another Fire Dragon squad or something. Got a really neat idea of how I can distinguish the two from reading this book. It definitely makes you want to field striking scorpions in your army, that's for sure. I remember reading halfway through this I started reading halfway through this book, and then all of a sudden I found myself looking at the stats of a striking scorpion and figuring how I can incorporate it in my army without even realizing it. Like, it really makes you interested in the striking scorpions a lot. Like I said, it gets you great insight to just, the way Eldar communicate to each other, how their conversations go. It talks about, their psyche, how they think about different things. Like, it's really cool to see what other regular Eldar react to the aspect warriors when they're interacting with them and how they interact with them. It's actually really neat. Another interesting thing about it was just there is, like, one major thing that I didn't like in this book. There was one event that happens in the middle of the book, and I feel there wasn't enough time. Like, things happen at such a pace, and I feel that this one moment that happens in the middle of the book happens too quickly. And I'm just like, there should have been more time before this thing happens. And general consensus of the book is no one usually likes the ending. Like, when I started reading this, Starklord said, "Oh yeah, I heard everyone saying that the ending's kind of at the end." And I didn't mind the ending, but something happens in the ending where I'm like, really? You're really doing this? You realize the book can still be good without this thing happening. You didn't have to have this happen in the story. But they do, and there's no way to fix that. But that's one thing I didn't like. That was one thing, like I said, pacing at one point in the book should have been managed a little bit differently, and they should have cut one part out of the ending. But it's really good. It got me into reading the second book, Path of the Seer, which I'll do a review of when I'm finished with that. I'm about halfway through it. And then I'll do, a review of Path of the Outcast once I get that, which I think comes out March 8th or something like that. And I'll do a review on that one as well. But all in all, if you're looking for something fresh that doesn't involve the Imperial Guard or the Space Marines, definitely worth a read. The writing is great. It's not overly technical, but to the point where you're just like, I have no idea what he's talking about, but not overly simple to the point where, like, you can use a few bigger words than what you're using. Like, it's kind of like a nice middle ground. And like I said, he assumes you know a general idea about the Eldar and takes that into account, so he doesn't explain things. Like, he doesn't explain what a Howling Banshee looks like. He doesn't really explain what a Striking Scorpion looks like. He just explains, the color of their armor. So you have to really have a general idea of the Eldar to really fully appreciate the book. But all in all, like I said, definitely worth a read. It's very enjoying, very refreshing. It was nice to read a book that didn't involve the Space Marines. Granted, I've never read a book before this in the Warhammer 40,000 universe, but I have noticed a lot of them just being about the Space Marines or the Imperial Guard, or in some way, shape, or form, the Space Marines end up being the focus of the book. And it was very nice to see a book that the Eldar were the main focus of the book itself. And I think they're actually doing a Spawn sequel to this called The Path of the Dark Eldar, which is coming out, it's either out now or coming out soon. And that looks interesting as well. I'll put a link in the description to Games Workshop's site where you can purchase this book. Like I said, definitely give this book a shot. And thank you all for watching. You know, like this video, subscribe to get, you know, keep up to date with what we're talking about. And stay tuned, because the new Touching Base episode will hopefully be up next week or so. So thank you all for watching. And oh, if there's any books that you think I would enjoy, you know, be it, you know, Warhammer 40K, D&D, any type of book like that, and you think that it should be worth, you know, giving a look over, or anyone else watching this should give it a look, leave a comment. Let me know what the book's, well, you know, the title of the book and who it's by, and, you know, maybe I'll check it out and you might see a review of it here. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, Fearless Gamers, take care.